that was the beginning of kind of my, I would say, depression around my injury. Like I actually was in very high spirits when the injury happened. I mean, obviously I wasn't feeling amazing because I couldn't exercise. But at least mentally I had a lot of hope in my head. And I think that time, when I was preparing for Little Sugar and Big Sugar is like, I was in a way worse mental place because two things were happening. I mean, I kind of realized that the season was over at that point. Like I wasn't going to be able to salvage something for the season. And when I looked back at the season, I was like, there's like not one single, I mean, I guess you could say I could be proud of Leadville, but it's only being proud of Leadville relative to my expectations. Like if I had been in regular fitness and I got that result at Leadville, I wouldn't have been happy. Yeah. So when I looked back at the season, I was like, I think it was like the first time in my racing life that I thought about, I was approaching the end of the season and I thought back to how I'd performed that year. And there was like not one single thing that I could be happy about.
What's going on, everybody? My name is JP, and I want to welcome you into the Stable Cyclist Podcast, where we talk about bikes, life experiences, and when the occasion arises, we will deep dive on mental health. Now, my guest this week is Dylan Johnson, but before we get Dylan in the hot seat here, last week we kicked off the new year by trying to get to know the community a little better, and I asked all of you to comment, to email, to DM what your favorite event was in 2025. And here are some of the favorites that I pulled. Eric Beal said the Pine Island Gravel Odyssey in Spearfish, South Dakota. And Rick Oakes, who is a proper hard man on the Minnesota Mountain Bike Series, echoed that and also said Dakota 5-0 for all those South Dakota fans out there. J.S. Weimer said the Arkansas Graveler. North 40 Photography said Unbound. Nick Carl said the Muddy Onion in Vermont, which sounds like a wild time with a lot of climbing. Plum Creek Grind said Ride Across Wisconsin. Hinky Dinky Time came in with the hottest take of the week, saying Unbound, but Gravel Worlds is awesome because it isn't the circus that Unbound is, where the elites do not feel the need to segregate themselves from the punters. It is pretty cool. That indeed is a hot take and also fairly true. Gravel Worlds is super chill with a lot of the same performers or same racers that we see at Unbound. And finally, River Valley Adventures said doing photo and video work at Arkansas High Country, you should make the trip. Don't tempt me because that race is definitely on my list for down the road. Which brings up my question this week, and that is, what adventure are you planning for this year, or what race are you training for? For me personally, I have some race and some adventure goals on the bike, but I'm going to keep those to myself for now as we kind of solidify things up. But what I am really excited about is what we talked about on last week's episode with Richard and the work that I'm doing with Silka this year as a freelance documentary filmmaker, and some of the projects and places I'm going to get to go and people that I'm going to get to work with, including today's guest, Dylan Johnson. So I want to know what you're planning for. What are you getting ready for? What has you excited? Because honestly, when we get in those low moments that we're going to talk about today with Dylan, sometimes having those adventures in the future can really help us move forward. So if you're on Spotify or YouTube where you can comment, be sure to leave a comment about where you are excited to go do things. And if you are on other platforms, you can DM me on Instagram, The Stable Cyclist, or you can send me an email, thestablecyclist@gmail.com. I do read all of them. I love hearing from all of you and getting to know you a bit more. This episode of the Stable Cyclist Podcast is brought to you by Silka. Whether it was the gravel roads throughout the Midwest this past year or the absolutely epic and rugged conditions of the Mahahe 100 this summer. I never had an issue with my chain when I was using Silka's hot wax or super secret chain wax, or in the absolute worst of conditions, the Synergetic wet lube. Pair that with the fact that I have not had a flat tire in 3 years while using the Silka tire sealant. And you put all that together, and it sounds like it's probably time that you head over to silka.cc to get some goodies to take care of your bike. As one of my good friends, Carrie, says, it is nutrition for your bike. You can use the code the Stable Cyclist Pod at checkout for 15% off your order, or you can hit the link in the description, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube. Oh, and I forgot to even mention, they do make literally the best bike pump in the world. This episode of the Stable Cyclist Podcast is also brought to you by Ignition Coach Co. Now, I have been working with Ignition coach Adam Sabin as my personal coach for the past 3 years, and it has been one of the most positive changes that I have made in anything related to bikes. To be honest, I have the knowledge and the tools and the experience to be coaching myself, but what I don't have these days is margin whatsoever in my schedule to take the time to coach myself. Having Adam check in, adjust my training, and prescribe exactly what I need each and every week allows me to just show up and do the work. And I know that I'm doing exactly what I need to. And best of all, I know that it allows me to continue to just take care of my mental health on a daily basis without having to stress about any of it. I mean, there's truly no more proof that I can give you greater than the fact that Adam helped me cut an hour and a half off of my finish time from the previous best that I had at the Mahahe 100 this past year. So if you're looking for structured and thoughtful coaching that fits into your life, you should head over to ignitioncoachco.com and hit the Start Now button to begin your journey. One last thing before we get Dylan in here. Dylan and I do go pretty deep on mental health today, and I know that some of you out there may be struggling. And if you are struggling, I just want to encourage you to seek help. Reach out to those around you and have conversations with the people in your life that care about you, because they do care about you. And your best life is the one after you've gotten help and you've been able to move forward. And I can speak for that myself. All right. Enough of all the pre-interview festivities. Let's get Dylan Johnson into the studio. Well, Dylan Johnson, welcome back for your third time in the hot seat at the Stable Cyclist Podcast. It's great to have you back, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very familiar with the setup now, so it's always a good time on this podcast.
It's kind of become the annual tradition where in November, December, I reach out to Dylan and say, hey, it's time to record that early in the year podcast. So here we are. Yeah. But your year was a little more bumpy this year, to say the least. And I think there's a lot in there that we can dive into. You had a really good podcast with Payson back around Big Sugar, Little Sugar week. But I was left with a lot of questions that I wanted to ask after I heard that interview. So We're going to dive into all of it. And I guess I want to start by just letting you talk about your season, how it was going, and then how it definitely didn't go, just for anybody that at this point possibly doesn't know the story.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there wasn't... So for those that don't know, I was hit by a truck in May, and there wasn't a whole lot of season before that. There was Valley of Tears, and I got 10th place at Valley of Tears, and then the weekend after was supposed to be Mid-South, but Mid-South got canceled because of fires, and then there was Sea Otter. Sea Otter I thought was a good personal performance for me, but the result wasn't amazing. I think it's just a really stacked race this year. And I Sea Otter is a course that I don't think suits me great. And then there was just the training block leading into Unbound. So really the season hadn't really I mean, there were a few races, but it hadn't really picked up before everything went to shit. But as far as the training goes, like I think I talked about this a little bit on Payson's podcast, but I did a massive training block leading into Unbound. And, this is the kind of training block I've been doing for the last 3 years to prepare for Unbound. And, it worked extremely well for me last year. Last year, my Unbound result is arguably the best result of my career. And I think that I was in the best shape that I've ever been in my life last year on the day of Unbound. And, towards the end of the Unbound block this year, my numbers were even more impressive than they were the previous year. You can never go back in time and, say, oh, I would have done this or I would have done that. I mean, anything could have happened on race day. Could have gotten a flat tire, could have, any number of things. But it was shaping up to be a really good Unbound.
Sure. So one thing I'm curious about is you reminded us that the beginning of last year was kind of left everyone wanting with how Valley of Tears got truncated and then Mid-South got canceled. How much of that played into, for you, this desire to really go have a big result at Unbound? These races that kind of suit you or you've had really good results at in the past, all of a sudden kind of also got taken away.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like, for whatever reason, it seemed like in 2025, the race season kept getting put on hold, like never getting off the ground. Valley of Tears got cut short, no Mid-South, whatever. And those should be good races for me. I've had really good Mid-Souths in the past, so I was obviously bummed that didn't happen. Regardless of whether those races went to plan or not, Unbound is such a massive goal for me. I mean, it is the AAA race on my calendar. So it doesn't matter if those races went well or didn't go well or went off as planned or got canceled. I was all in for Unbound. Yeah.
Okay. So how close to Unbound did the accident happen?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks out from Unbound. I would assume that most people listening to the podcast have probably already heard this story. I mean, I've talked about it on so many platforms at this point: podcast, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. But for those who don't know, I'll keep it brief. 2 weeks out from Unbound, I'm just out on basically a recovery ride. I wasn't out on like a massive training day or anything. I'd already had the Unbound block behind me, and I was kind of recovering for the race. And I was just riding down a really quiet country road, like not a lot of traffic at all. And then a work truck that was hauling porta potties was kind of in this gravel lot. I'm on a paved road, but it was on this gravel lot perpendicular to the road, and it basically pulled out right when I was passing and hit me. Its bumper hit me square in the knee, and I crashed when it hit me. But the real damage was to my knee, and the injury that I got was my tibial plateau was fractured. And for those who don't know, the tibial plateau, that's basically right where the lower leg bone meets the knee. Went to the hospital. I remember the entire time I was really hoping that it was a minor injury, even though it was clearly not a minor injury at all. Like I couldn't bend my leg and I was in a ton of pain. And and when they told me that, I mean, I think that obviously the whole experience was painful, but probably the most painful thing was them telling me that I couldn't do Unbound. I mean, I just felt like I had put in so much work for it at that point. That Unbound block that I did 100 hours of training in a 3-week period. And when you're doing that, I mean, it honestly feels like the only things you're doing are riding your bike, eating, and sleeping. And, I mean, obviously you got to do some other things in there, but like, that's what it feels like when you're in a block like that. Like you are eat, sleep, riding, and repeating, like just like those t-shirts. So yeah, that was hugely disappointing.
So, because I think initially a lot of us that are a little more anatomical, I don't know how to describe it. Like when I first heard what happened to you, and even when you posted, I thought, oh, he just probably broke his fibula, and that'll be like 2-3 weeks, and he might race Unbound, and then however you had worded it on one of your posts, I wrote to you and I was like, did you misquote this? Like, did you fracture your tibial plateau? Because that's a really serious injury.
Yeah.
And what was that process? I mean, how long did it take you to work through that? Or maybe you still haven't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I was like super optimistic at the beginning. And I kind of just, I think in the first post that I made about it, I was talking about how like, I'll come back stronger at the end of the season. And, this training block that I just did for Unbound, that'll be my base training for the second half of the season, and I'll be good and all of this. And I really don't think I fully grasped the severity of the injury at all. Like I kind of had it in my mind that I'm going to take a little bit of a break here because I have to, and then I'll get back to training. I just did this massive block. I've got this massive base built up. I'll come back to training. I'll be fresh. I'll have a good second half of the season. And I actually thought that maybe, because you do hear these stories about people having an injury and then coming back and having like the best performance of their entire career.
Yes.
And I thought, maybe that could be the case here because I really set myself up well for that to happen with this massive training block, massive recovery, and then I'll be fresh for the second half of the season. And again, I didn't grasp the severity of a tibial plateau fracture at the time.
What did rehab look like for you during this?
Yeah, I mean, I was on crutches for over a month. I couldn't walk for over a month. Basically for a month, I just pretty much just sat on the couch. And, it's you don't realize it, but recovering from a broken bone is actually quite taxing. Like I wasn't doing anything all day and I was really tired. Like I slept a lot and then, I started going to physical therapy, and a lot of that was just trying to get the range of motion back. Like the range of motion in my knee was, I mean, at first, like I could barely bend my knee at all. Like there was almost no range of motion, and it's just slowly trying to get that range of motion back. And every time I would go in, they would measure my range of motion, and you see a little bit of progress there. Like the range of motion starts to come back, and once the range of motion was good enough, then we started building strength back in the leg that got broken. Both my legs lost a pretty significant amount of muscle, but the one that was actually broken, I mean, it was my quad was probably half the size that it normally is. Like I lost so much muscle. So there was quite a bit of re-strengthening that needed to be done.
Sure. So as you're starting to train, you in your head are going to be Matthew Heyman with a broken arm and go win Paris-Roubaix. And how quickly did you start to realize like this was so much of this equates to like I suffered a really bad head injury 2 years ago, and like the rebuild took forever. And so many people that suffer these huge injuries, and we all pop up and we think we're going to be fine and we're going to go do this. And the ball of string starts to unwind, and you're like, this is way harder than I possibly thought it could be, no matter how fit I was. And so how How was that reckoning for you, I guess, as you started to really actually get back on the bike?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so when I first got back on the bike, I didn't expect a whole lot of myself because I just spent over a month not doing anything. Like it's not even that I wasn't training. I mean, I wasn't doing anything. Like I wasn't walking. I mean, it was the least active I've been for a month in my entire life. And that probably includes when I was a kid. In fact, it definitely includes when I was a kid, because I was definitely the kind of kid that was running around a lot and, climbing all over the jungle gym, or, jumping from high places, putting myself at danger. But so it's definitely the least active I've ever been in my life. So I didn't expect a whole lot of myself when I came back. And, I was, as expected, really out of shape when I started riding again. And, it's always kind of, regardless of whether you get injured or not, like just if you take a off-season break, it's kind of a humbling experience getting back on the bike and, feeling like you lost a ton of fitness. I definitely felt like that. My heart rate was through the roof doing what used to be zone 2 for me. And when I first got back on the bike, my range of motion still wasn't 100%. So and unclipping was very painful for me. So I literally just rode, I rode with on my left foot, which was my good leg. I had a normal cycling shoe on, but with my right leg, which was my bad leg, I just wore my Vans and didn't clip in.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I got shorter cranks too. So I went from, I already ride short cranks 165s, but I went to 155s again, because of my range of motion. And I put my saddle higher than it would normally go, just so that I didn't have to bend my leg that much. Sure. And yeah, those first couple rides back, like honestly, recovery zone was about what I could handle, but you do start to, it started to come back pretty quickly. But I think probably the next thing that we'll touch on is when I got back to racing early in the season, I imagine.
Yeah, no, let's just keep it rolling. Keep the story going here.
Sure. Yeah. So my first race back was Leadville, which is, that's like, I can't imagine like a more daunting first race back after injury. Anybody that's done Leadville knows, but Leadville is a super high altitude race. We're talking 10 to 12,000 feet, a ton of climbing, 100 miles on a mountain bike. It is a really challenging race, even if you're at full fitness. Even if you're a professional at full fitness, it's a really challenging and daunting race. And going into that race again, like I think I still had low expectations of myself, because I knew that I wasn't that fit. I think I had maybe, this was 3 months out from the accident. I had over a month of just sitting on the couch, not doing anything. I had about a month of just, the only riding that I could do was basically short recovery rides. So we're talking about like an hour at 100 watts. And then I had a month where I could properly train, where I was like building back up and I was actually properly training and getting in some longer rides. So I really didn't have, I really didn't have high expectations of myself leading into Leadville. And I exceeded the very low expectations that I had. I was actually extremely happy with how Leadville went. It was a super emotional race for me. And yeah, I think my time was maybe 20 minutes off of what it normally is, or 25 minutes off of what it normally is, which, like, given how unprepared I felt, that was shocking to me that it was that close. And I was super happy with how Leadville went. And again, it was one of those things where I don't think I'd fully grasped how long at this point. I still don't think I fully grasped how serious the tibial plateau fracture injury was. And I was like, if Leadville went this well, the second half of the season, like I'm good for the second half of the season. I'm going to be crushing it by Big Sugar.
That was a question I had. Is Leadville did go so well in, I guess, in hindsight of what had happened. Did Leadville almost set you up for disappointment, or your body saying like, "Whoa, that was fine that we did this once, but we're not quite ready to do this"? At a real high level?
I definitely think it set me up for disappointment, actually, right? Because, I think if I had gone into Leadville and gotten, maybe if I was like an hour back from my normal time and like just struggled through it, and I was like, if I got to the end of Leadville and I was like, oof, I really have a long way to go here. I may have had a more realistic picture of how the second half of the season was going to go. But I finished Leadville and I was like, I was like, this, I'm going to crush it in the second half of the season. I'm already this fit. There's no way I'm not going to crush it in the second half of the season. So in the next race after Leadville in the Lifetime Grand Prix is Schwamigan. And from what I recall, it just took me forever to recover from Leadville. Like normally after a race like that, it's probably about a week to feel good on the bike again. And I remember, I think it took over 2 weeks for me to feel good on the bike. Like recovery took forever. And then when I finally did get back to training, once I felt recovered, I actually had some really decent sessions, some sessions that I thought were indications that I was in good shape for Schwamigan. Like I did a session of 5-minute intervals where I felt like my power numbers were pretty close to pre-accident numbers. And then, I still didn't nearly have the volume in my legs that I would normally have.
Yeah.
And for any training peaks geeks out there, my CTL was much lower than it normally would have been. Like I think, I normally mid race season would be sitting at a CTL of maybe 110 or something. And it was at, 90-ish. So pretty significantly lower. And then Schwamigan, I think so, people who follow me know that I typically get 17th place in these Lifetime Grand Prix races. This year was the year of 27th place. So this accident set me back 10 places because I got 3 27th places in a row. Leadville 27th, Schwamigan 27th, and then Little Sugar 27th. And it was just very obvious that I wasn't fit at Schwamigan. My power numbers weren't good. I was really gassed just trying to hold wheels. I think I got dropped 30 minutes in, and it was just obvious that I wasn't in shape come Schwamigan, and I kind of had it in my head after Schwamigan that I have nothing to lose for Little Sugar and Big Sugar. Like I have to throw the Hail Mary, as it were. And to me, the Hail Mary is doing basically a massive volume block before Little Sugar and Big Sugar. And this is really where the disappointment sets in. Like I let myself recover from Schwamigan, and then I go to start my massive volume block. And I do the first ride of the volume block, and it's just supposed to be a 5-hour endurance ride, and I completely crack 2.5 hours in. And I chose a route that I couldn't shorten. Like it was one massive loop. So I rode for 5 hours, but for 2.5 of those hours, I was crawling. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that was a bad day. Maybe that was a fluke day. I'm going to try it again the next day. Tried it again the next day. The exact same thing happened. 5-hour day. Again, I didn't pick a route. I didn't pick a route that I could shorten again. I mean, I did this 2 days in a row, the same mistake. I got 2.5 hours in, completely cracked, and crawled home. And yeah, that was the beginning of kind of my, I would say, depression around my injury. Like I actually was in very high spirits when the injury happened. I mean, obviously I wasn't feeling amazing because I couldn't exercise. But at least mentally I had a lot of hope in my head. And I think that time, when I was preparing for Little Sugar and Big Sugar is like, I was in a way worse mental place because two things were happening. I mean, I kind of realized that the season was over at that point. Like I wasn't going to be able to salvage something for the season. And when I looked back at the season, I was like, there's like not one single, I mean, I guess you could say I could be proud of Leadville, but it's only being proud of Leadville relative to my expectations. Like if I had been in regular fitness and I got that result at Leadville, I wouldn't have been happy. Yeah. So when I looked back at the season, I was like, I think it was like the first time in my racing life that I thought about, I was approaching the end of the season and I thought back to how I'd performed that year. And there was like not one single thing that I could be happy about. And then also, you know, it was kind of a case of, it was really easy to get to 90%. Like, I think I got to 90% by Leadville, honestly. Like, getting back to 90% was easy, and the remaining 10% was so hard. I mean, it was unbelievably hard. Yeah. The remaining 10%. And, you know, in bike racing, 10% matters a lot. So, you know, that remaining 10% was massive. Yeah, like, you know, this is kind of what I tell people when they ask about how the recovery's going. It's like getting to 90 or 95, not difficult. The remaining 5 to 10 is like climbing a mountain.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So
how jarring was it? You know, you mentioned going into some of these races that your CTL was a lot, and I don't mean to like get into the training peaks like geekery right now, but this is as an example. Like your training peaks your CTL wasn't where you wanted it to be. And I know for a fact that if you were working with another athlete in your same position with the amount of base that you have in your past, you would tell them, you're going to be fine. You have this big base so you can handle it. And you are going to be able to claw this back. And all these things you would have been, even a year ago when you were on the podcast, you talked about like, I got into this depression and I rode my way out of it basically. And you're doing all this stuff and it's just like continually going south. How much was that contributing to, by the time you're on this podcast with Pace at Little Sugar or ahead of Little Sugar, I was like, ooh, this guy's in trouble. Like, yeah. Like you sounded so defeated, if I can say that. And how much of all these things of like, I know how to solve this. I can do this. I've figured it out, and none of it's working.
Yeah, I mean that really was the source of how defeated I was at that point. I mean, defeated is the right word. Like I had no confidence in myself. The Little Sugar, Big Sugar week. I had no confidence that the races were going to go well. I had no confidence in my fitness. And it was really just a case of like training had gone terribly leading into that point. Like I felt like I couldn't even get through a 5-hour endurance ride, which, you know, that's just the bread and butter of what I do. A 5-hour endurance ride should be, when I'm in good, like, for example, earlier this year when I did the Unbound block, a 5-hour endurance ride, that's like a walk around the park when I'm in that kind of shape. Like that is actually, I know 5 hours is a long time to be on the bike, but a 5-hour endurance day, like I would get back. There were a lot of times where I would actually feel better the next day if I had done 5 hours of endurance the day before. Like I would feel ready for my intervals after a 5-hour endurance day. And I couldn't even get through 5 hours without cracking.
Yeah.
And I think, people may be asking like that, what physiologically is going on there? Like, why are you, just because you broke your leg doesn't mean you're a different person. Like, why are you cracking 5 hours into a ride? I think I think I talked to some people who'd broken a large bone before, and I think that, what I said earlier about how it actually saps you of energy is definitely the case. Like I was definitely sapped of energy. I think that, healing a bone kind of pulls on your iron stores a bit, because your body needs iron to repair the bones. It could have been the case that I was already hovering on the like the edge of low iron to begin with, and then the combination of Leadville and trying to heal a broken bone kind of set me into low iron. I mean, for people that are very familiar with ferritin levels, I got my ferritin checked around this time because I was so worried I needed to do blood work, and my ferritin was 33. So 33 that's not an alarmingly low number. Most people with a ferritin of 33, they'd be walking around and they feel fine. Like they don't even notice that there's an issue. It's usually like in the 20s or maybe teens or certainly single digit ferritin levels where people start noticing that something's wrong with them. Yeah. But I think for an athlete, like it only takes things being a little bit off to feel completely off on the bike. And that's definitely how I felt. Interval sessions weren't going well. Couldn't get in any sort of decent volume. Recovery took forever. Like I remember, I was really worried about the little sugar, big sugar week, because you have little sugar on Sunday and then not even a week later on Saturday, you have big sugar. And I was like, as of right now, if I do a 5-hour race, which is, what little sugar will probably take me, I can't even recover in 6 days at this point. So, and yeah, that week I was not recovering well at all. I think like that week was so incredibly rough for me. Yeah. And it was, that was the week that I had the interview with Payson, and it was probably, I didn't listen back to that interview. I don't know how I sounded on that interview, but mentally, it was probably one of the worst places that I could have been in when that interview happened. Yeah.
Yeah. In a word, bad, and in 2 words, not good is how you sound. I was worried enough that I know that was when I first reached out about hey, we should probably chat again. But you can tell me I'm totally wrong on this, but I've spent a lot of time with a lot of pros in the last year in person at races and on the pod here, and you seem to me to be maybe one of the most autonomous people in the whole group. You coach yourself, you run your own business, you do everything, you're in control of it. And that can be a huge strength, but how much in this process have you had to lean on other people or tap into other people? Or have you thought about maybe I need to go work with someone through these things?
Yeah. My support network at the time, it's funny. Last year we were talking about my mental struggles around my relationship at the time, which
Yeah.
And this year I just got into a new relationship, and during the Little Sugar Big Sugar week, Peta Mullins, who's my girlfriend, she was living with me. So I had her there, and I actually, I've told her this so many times, but I felt really bad that the relationship was so new and she had to see this side of me so early, because I don't think it's a side of me that's like reflective of how I normally am at all.
Sure.
And, every time I say that, she says, "Oh, you're silly. Like, I don't care. I just want you to be happy."
Yeah.
All the supportive girlfriend things. Like, she was great through the whole process, and it was really good to have her too. I mean, that was super helpful, because if I'd been alone through that, it probably would have been worse.
Yeah.
Obviously I can always talk to my parents. My parents are super supportive.
Yeah.
I did actually, for the very first time in my life, seek therapy. I didn't even go to therapy after last year.
Sure.
With everything that I was struggling with. But, I'm going to be honest. I didn't give it a full shot. I did one session with one therapist that I didn't really like. And then I did another session with a therapist that I did like. And that therapist is, more focused on athletes.
Okay.
And I'm going to be honest. I just don't know how helpful it was. Like,
Sure.
I felt like after the session, I actually felt much worse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because, like, I was forced to talk about all these things that were so painful for me, but
Yeah.
I felt terrible after that session. And I'm not saying that the therapist did a bad job. I mean, maybe that's like part of it, but I just did the one session with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was, again, like I think I told you this last year. I'm not generally somebody who struggles with depression, but if something is, if there's something happening in my life that, causes depression, I can definitely feel that. And there's probably,
you're human, and I think even if we don't feel susceptible to it, like, big life events can really jar you. And you had like multiple big life events, from the accident, and then, not getting into the Grand Prix, and things that are really tied to your identity. Those can jar anybody pretty hard. And so I think what you went through is pretty normal. I think a lot of people just aren't willing to always talk about it like you are.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, I'll never, this was also the most major injury I've ever had in my life. Like, I've had concussions,
Sure.
I've had broken ribs, I had a broken elbow. Nothing that put me off the bike for a long time. Like, and when people get injured, they talk about how hard it is. They're like, man, mentally I was in a bad place and this and that. I think people just generally don't get into a whole lot of details with that, but I'm never going to dismiss that ever again in my life. Like, it is super challenging.
Yeah.
When that happens.
How hard was all this to, like, you are a very public person. Like, you are on a weekly podcast with a lot of listeners and viewers, multiples of them. You have the coaching podcast, and you have Bonk Bros, and you have your YouTube channel. And obviously the YouTube channel, you can kind of control when and what you want to go out versus sitting around with your buddies who are just like,
sure,
tell us what happened. But what was that like to be trying to, kind of maybe keep things together and just tell the story when in reality you weren't doing so hot?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of struggled with how much I wanted to share publicly.
Yeah.
And I really, I feel like I only shared 10% of how I actually felt.
Sure.
I made some posts on Instagram that delved a little bit deeper into how I felt, if you really read into them. And obviously I made a YouTube video after Leadville, and I kind of talked about, my emotions during Leadville, and how the accident affected me. But again, that Leadville video was kind of before the depression.
Sure.
The depression hadn't really hit me yet. And I kind of struggled with how much I really wanted to share about it because, I would prefer to put out an uplifting message to the world and inspire people. And I didn't feel like, and maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe just hearing other people struggling with things is inspiring for people that are struggling with things. I mean, there were a lot of people that reached out to me and told me about an injury that they had recently, and that hearing about how I did Leadville 3 months after I got in an accident, that was inspiring for them. So that, that meant a lot to me. But I don't know. I went back and forth with it a lot because I want to put out an uplifting message, and I want to be inspiring for people, but I don't know. It kind of felt like a fine line of oversharing. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, I totally understand. What I will say is I think even this conversation we're having now, the gravel dads who all look up to you and talk about you at races and want to come find you, I think can relate to what you're talking about today, far more than the Watts or the geek, like the aero geek stuff.
Sure.
And so I think there's a lot of value in what you're sharing, and I really appreciate you just opening up about it. But
appreciate that.
How do you, it was a rough year. We can just put a cap on it there. It was a really rough year. How do you recalibrate going into this year or going into 2026? We're talking mid-December. This will come out early January. But how do you recalibrate for the coming year? And have you been able to, or are you still trying to kind of navigate what next year is going to look like for you?
Sure. Yeah. I almost feel like a different person now, and it's not just because of the accident. I felt like through my 20s, I didn't have a lot of hard things happen to me. I mean, I did a lot of bike racing, which, is a hard thing, but it was like self-inflicted hard things, right?
Yes.
Like
opting in.
And then kind of two really hard things hit me back to back in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a lot of people that probably think of me as like a pretty robotic, logical thinker, and they're not wrong. I mean, I think that most people that know me are probably would say that Dylan's pretty analytical, and a logical thinker is probably the best way to put it. Not super emotional, and I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like the last 2 years changed me.
Sure.
Like I feel much. I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. Like I feel much more in touch with my emotions, whether they be positive or negative, now than I ever was.
Yeah.
And but anyway, like getting back to your question about what does next year look like? I would say that at this point, I'm out of the depression. I've gotten myself out of the hole. This may not be super relatable for people who haven't dealt with depression, but I think for people who have, they know what I'm talking about when I talk about a hole. Like when you get in a hole of depression, it feels really hard to get out of. And it doesn't necessarily matter what's going on in your life. It's just you feel like you're in this hole and you're trying to dig your way out, but you can't. And at this point, I've found my way out of the hole. Like, sadness is not my state of being at this point. Although obviously, like if I'm forced to reflect on this past year, it can come back out, but,
sorry.
No, that's okay. So I've found my way out of that hole, at this point, which is good. And I'm really motivated to start training again. I already have started training again, putting in time on the bike. And so far training's going well, but it's only December 18th right now when we're recording this. So it's really early. Volume isn't super high yet. It's hard to say how I'm going to feel. But I'm very optimistic at this point. And as far as goals next year, I didn't make it back into the Lifetime Grand Prix. And I said this in an Instagram post, but I actually think that that's a good thing because at the end of the day, the Lifetime Grand Prix is a professional sporting organization. Yep. And they should choose who gets in objectively, and have a merit-based process for who gets in. I know when the Lifetime Grand Prix first started, there was a lot of internet memes and a lot of jokes about how, the people that got in just got in because of their Instagram following and, it's the popular kids club and all of that. I would say at this point, it's not that at all. It is the fastest riders are getting into the Lifetime Grand Prix, and the riders that deserve it are getting into the Lifetime Grand Prix. And every single year, there's going to be people up in arms about this person or that person not getting in. And I think that's just the nature of how they've decided to run the series. But I would say at this point, it's about as objective as it could be. And I really commend them for that. And if I'm gonna be the casualty of that because I had a bad season, then so be it. I think it's actually a good thing for the sport.
Yeah.
But that being said, they still have these wild card spots open. So three riders can wild card back in based on their Sea Otter result and their Unbound result. And so I plan to go for that one of those wild card spots. And so that really is my main objective right now, is getting one of those wild card spots. And it may or may not happen.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that will completely dictate what the second half of my season looks like. I've not planned the second half of my season at all. And it will completely depend on whether I make it into the Grand Prix. If I make it back in, then obviously I'm going to focus on the Grand Prix like I have the past 4 years. If I don't make it back in, then I may do something completely different with the second half of my season. Like I may do completely different races, maybe go over to Europe, maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't think, I don't think I probably won't go to Leadville. I'll probably still do Little Sugar, Big Sugar because I like those. Schwamigan, I don't know, might be up in the air, but I may that might be a good time to do Oregon Gravel Grind or the Rift or, Core 4 or some of these European gravel races. So, yeah.
Right on. Awesome. Well, it's time for, random fire here.
Okay.
It's not rapid fire because sometimes we get stuck on a question for a while, but this is random fire. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about some real serious stuff here for a while, and we need to ease back
we need
into,
to lighten the mood here.
Yeah, Like you and I roll in the same crew, although your injury meant like we never saw each other this year, but nothing is ever serious with that group of people. And so we need to get the mood back over to that. So
agreed.
Here we go. You're already like smashed the game board last year with the gas station question. And set the internet on fire. So I'm just, unless you've had a change of heart of some kind, we're just gonna move on.
No, I'm still not a gas station stopper. I may be more emotional, but I still don't stop at gas stations.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what I do want to know is what is your favorite post-meal ride, and we're not worried about calories or like you just you have a big one and you just want to eat. What are we gonna have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, most of the time, if I've done a really big day, I'll probably just have like a bowl of granola with fruit. I know that's not a very exciting answer. I mean, I don't know what you expected of me. I don't know if you expected me to have an exciting
I did not
answer.
expect anything like wild. We're going through the questions. So
yeah,
we'll take that.
I know that like Chase Work is probably eating honey buns or something, but no, I keep my diet pretty straight edge, so.
Okay. Speaking of Chase Work, the first time I ever was in his house, my son was with me, and my son watched Chase pull out like a casserole dish of just plain rice. It probably had like 5 cups of rice, and my son's mouth was open and his eyes were huge as Chase just ate like 5 cups of plain white rice.
Yeah.
So you might get something like that if you go to Winona, Minnesota, too. So
yeah, no, I mean, I've seen Chase just shovel like dry cereal into his mouth.
Yes. Also, I have from the bag. Like
I'm trying to remember what Frosted Flakes maybe is his favorite cereal.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, Chase, if I'm screwing that up.
No, you got it right. And Fruity Pebbles are also up there too. So
yeah.
All right. I am thinking that you do not listen to music on the bike, but I could be wrong.
Whoa. Why are you thinking that?
I don't know. It just seems like maybe that's something that you would do. Are you a music listener on the bike?
100%, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So what's on the Dylan Johnson hot mix?
Well, Bonk Bros actually just had a crossover episode with Bonk Babes where we talked about our Spotify. I feel like I need to bring up my Spotify and maybe. So I'll just put my liked songs on shuffle when I'm on a Zone 2 ride, and that could be anything from like 50s country to metal to rap from the 2000s, to classic rock. I mean, it just goes all over the place. Like the vibe is not consistent at all.
Sure.
It's really all over the place. I think that when I'm trying to do intervals, so I'm trying to listen to some music that's going to like get some more watts out of me. I've gotten really into metal while I'm doing intervals. And then, I've been listening to like Eminem and 50 Cent when I do intervals since I was, I don't know, 18 years old. That's just the classic go-to. Yeah. I think I said on that podcast, Eminem was my most listened to artist last year, and I was in the top 0.1% of Eminem listeners in the world. And I think part of that is just because I have a lot of Eminem on the playlist that I just put on shuffle while I'm riding, but also when I'm doing intervals, Eminem adds like 10 watts to me, so
fair.
I put him on quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, so this year in 2026 we are gonna curate a list of like bangers, one from each guest. And so if you had one song only that you could put on this list, what is the Dylan Johnson banger?
Okay. There's an Eminem song that, I don't have the Spotify data on this, but if there's one song that I've probably listened to more than any song in my entire life, it's probably I'm Back by Eminem.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that one fits. Okay. So then we have one more music question in the random fire, and that is, in an imaginary scenario where the Holy Spirit of Gravel and I host a karaoke activation at Unbound, what song are you going to come and sing?
This doesn't sound very imaginary. This sounds like you guys are planning to do this.
Well, we'll see.
I'd like to sing I'm Back. Not sing, rap. I'm a terrible singer, so it's probably better for me to do a rap song, honestly.
Sure.
It's got very explicit lyrics, though. Like, even
the crowd
lyrics,
might like that.
The lyrics are so explicit that the explicit version of the song still had to bleep out a part.
Amazing. Okay. All right. Well, we'll tag it on the board, and we'll, if this event happens, we'll have it waiting for you, queued up. So
great.
Yeah. Okay. What is the most? I guess we got one more song here. What is the most overplayed song in gravel cycling?
In gravel cycling, well, I was going to say,
or in all. It could be mountain bike as well, but
yeah. I was going to say at the starting line of a bike race, probably the Final Countdown.
Oh wow! Okay, not what I thought you were going to say.
What do you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say Thunderstruck, the great gathering song of all normies and all gravel dads.
Yeah, Thunderstruck does get played a lot. Thunderstruck's up there. But how many times have you been on the starting line of a bike race where they're playing music and they throw on the Final Countdown?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's not a bad song. Like, I like that song. I'm just saying it. I've heard it a lot at a bike race before.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what they played at Lutzen last year during the actual anthem. The lady was trying to sing, and they played one of these, like, overplayed songs, like, loud. And it was amazing. And she just tried to, like, dial in and sing the anthem, so.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Okay. I don't think I've asked you this before, but are you into Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
I was a Harry Potter kid when I was, 12, 13.
Wonderful.
Yeah. More of a Harry Potter kid than a Lord of the Rings kid.
Okay. Then that leads into a sub question.
Oh boy.
That I think
You're gonna test my Harry Potter knowledge now.
Yeah, I am. What house do you think you would get sorted to? And I think I know the answer, but I'm going to let you try and predict.
Okay. Well, I feel like Gryffindor is the obvious answer because that's Harry's house, and that seems like the best house to be in. And then Slytherin seems like the evil bad guy house with that.
We're not evil. We're not evil.
Oh, are you a Slytherin?
Yeah, this is my Slytherin mascot right there.
Oh wow! All right.
We're just calculating.
Yeah. And then what are the other ones? Hufflepuff, and I'm forgetting the fourth one.
Ravenclaw.
I can't even
I don't think either of us are smart enough to be in Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff's like super emotional. So
yeah, no, I don't think I've gotten to that point yet. Man, you know more about the lore than I do, because I couldn't, like, the only thing that I could tell you is that Gryffindor seems like the good guys, the Harry side, and then Slytherin seems like the bad guys, like the snake, you know. I feel like I see myself as more of a Gryffindor. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go there. Gryffindors always see themselves as the hero in the situation. So, versus just like sitting back and calculating. So, it's all good. Oh,
so you think I'm Slytherin because I'm sitting back and calculating.
Yeah, 100%. And you're full of ambition.
All right. Yeah.
And you regard rules as optional if they're dumb.
Yeah.
So,
you know who I think is a Slytherin, and maybe he wins so much that maybe Gryffindor is a better place to put him. But I feel like he's a Slytherin. Is Keegan Swenson? He's got that blonde hair, just like Draco Malfoy, and he doesn't really give a f-. Like he just sits back and is like, he writes like 2 words for his Instagram caption after he just won Leadville.
Yep.
And he's just like, whatever. That seems real Slytherin to me.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean I think he's evil. It just means I think he's like ambitious and all good. Yeah. Okay. So I call it the Wahoo question because they support me, but you can call it whatever you want. When you are riding, what is the primary screen on your head unit?
Yeah. Well, I'm supported by Wahoo too. So I've got these 2. When I'm riding and I'm just doing an endurance ride, I've just got power and heart rate. And I'll even turn off time and I just look at my power and heart rate. And I like to zone out and not think about how much time has passed. So I just keep my power and my heart rate there to make sure I'm in the right zone, and that's it.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured. Are you?
Well, what? I'm actually curious now. What are your screens?
Not a whole lot different. I probably have like 5 or like 5 things on my screen, and it's like power and huge. When I'm mountain biking, I like to know what gear I'm in, just because I like to know if I've got one gear left.
Yeah.
I've got heart rate. Usually I'll have time on there, like actual time of day, because with 5 kids and a wife, it's kind of important that I skedaddle home in time.
It's fair.
And maybe time of ride. Not a lot of it's not a lot different. I like to know the basics.
I think Wahoo needs to make a screen that's like just a smiley face for people who like to live in the moment, real Zen people. Like it collects all the data. If you want to look at it later, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But at least while you're riding, you just look down and you see a smiley face and it reminds you to be happy in that moment.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll talk to Ian Boswell about that.
Exactly. Yeah, Ian is a good guy who takes care of us. So,
yeah.
All right, road or mountain bike pedals? I think I know your answer.
Road pedals.
Okay, not swayed at all by the incidents of Big Sugar.
What happened to Big Sugar?
I
had to walk. Yeah. Yeah, I think I blocked that entire week from my memory.
Okay. All right.
If honestly, fair. If I forgot about everything that happened at the week of Little Sugar to Big Sugar, I think I'd be a happier, healthier person.
Fair.
Yeah, no, I mean road pedals for sure. If I have to walk, then the race is probably not going great.
The day's over.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, like if it's going to be a really muddy Unbound or something, like I'm not going to be dumb and ride road pedals. Like I'm going to ride mountain bike pedals, but I don't like it. Like I don't like the way it feels. The pedal is heavier. It's less aero. I think people talk about power transfer. I think that's very up for debate, whether that is actually a thing or not. I haven't actually seen any evidence that power gets transferred better with a road pedal versus a mountain bike pedal, and it wouldn't shock me if there's almost no difference in power transfer between the two. But it just feels better to me.
Okay. I'm sure I know the answer to this one. Solo rides or group rides?
I'm a big solo rider.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a group ride occasionally, but I would say 95% of the rides I do are by myself. That being said, so I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area, and the one thing that I do really miss about D.C. Is my parents, but also in second place. Actually, I don't know. It's competing with my parents is the Haynes Point weekday group ride. It's basically like a crit every single day at noon. And so any day of the week that you want to have a hard 1 hour group ride, you can just stroll on down to Haynes Point and have a really high quality, like race simulation group ride at your disposal. And unfortunately, after COVID, all the Brevard group rides just kind of died, and I don't really have that anymore. So
sure.
I do like the occasional group ride, but vast majority of rides I do are solo.
Yeah, totally understand. Okay. This is the bell or yell question. When you come up behind someone in a race or otherwise, do you give them the bell, which on the Wahoo you can just tap the screen and it's very loud, or do you yell at them?
Well, I only got the Wahoo with the bell feature very recently. And before that, I'm way too much of a marginal gains guy to put a heavy ass bell on my bike. And when I say heavy ass bell, I'm like, it's probably like 15 grams. Like they're not heavy. So I guess I'm a yeller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay. You and I both have a relationship with Silka. And so these are kind of like marginal gains types question, but I don't want you to go like off into the weeds here.
Okay.
But
try to restrain myself.
Yeah, exactly. Night before the race, what are 2 things that you always are making sure are done with your bike?
Well, definitely wax chain, making sure the chain is waxed, and, depending on the course, you can get pretty nerdy with the wax. You told me to restrain myself, so I will. But if it's going to be a shorter, drier race, probably speed chip. If it's going to be a longer, wetter race, probably endurance chip. And then probably just making sure sealant is topped up too, especially for gravel racing. That becomes super important. You don't want dry sealant heading into a race.
For sure. Okay. What is the race day maintenance that you are terrible at? So,
race day
for
maintenance.
example, So, for example, this could be a lot of things, but when people ask me this, my answer is, for example, at the Matahe 100 this year, one of the most rugged races in America, 20 miles in, my friend Derek asked me, "What'd you bring for tools today?" And I said, "Nothing." Nothing. I don't ever bring stuff with me. I'm terrible at it, and so I'm always, if I ever have a problem, I'm screwed. But do you have things like that you don't pay attention to, or just in general that that I got to do a better job of this, but I don't?
Can I give an honest, cocky answer? And I say this knowing that it's cocky before I say it, right? So I'm acknowledging that this is a cocky answer.
We're gonna clip this right here. So
I don't think I pride myself on having dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's on race day. I really pride myself on showing up to race day as prepared as I could possibly be, and that's everything from the training to the bike setup to just knowing how to deal with shit when shit goes wrong out there. I think that's just something that I pride myself on, is being prepared for races. So if I'm being honest with this answer, I don't feel like I have one. It's kind of like the gas station question.
It's all good. It's all good. I think part of the reason that a lot of these are predictable is because we have a really big sample size of answers from you from all the different shows and things you do. So it's a little easier to guess. But okay, we got 3 remaining. What is a race that you've done that you think everybody should go do?
I might have said this on the last show, but maybe you asked me what my favorite race is, but I just have such a soft spot for the Shenandoah Mountain 100, which is a mountain bike race. So some of the roadies listening, or some of the people that only do gravel, might be like, I don't know about that. And I will say the Shenandoah 100 is not the same as it used to be. It used to be way more of a party atmosphere, really big event. I mean, it kind of felt like the East Coast Leadville. And the course is amazing. Atmosphere is amazing. Race promoter Chris Scott is such a cool guy. love everything about that race. It was the first 100-mile mountain bike race that I ever did. So obviously I'm biased here, but I just think it's such a cool event. And I was disappointed when the traditional course had to be changed because, some locals got upset. But so, and to be honest, since I got into the Grand Prix, I haven't done it because it always kind of conflicted with, I think Schwamigan, maybe. It's around the same time as Schwamigan.
Yeah.
So I haven't been back to it in a number of years, but yeah, I highly recommend that one to people.
Fantastic. What is a race that you see that you're like, I have not done this, but I'm here for that?
I would love to do Traca. And the reason why I haven't done Traca, and I probably won't do Traca this year either, is I feel like Traca is at a bad time of year for me. Because I really it's so for those who don't know, it's probably about a month before Unbound, which you could
in the middle of your 100-hour block.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could be looking at that and thinking like, oh, that's perfect. Like you're getting a 200+ mile gravel race effort before you have to do a 200-mile gravel race. That sounds perfect, but it's really not, because what I would much prefer to do is do this massive training block during that time and not have to fly over to Spain, do this really hard race, fly back, take over a week to recover, when in all of that time I could have just been doing 35, 40-hour weeks. And being arguably more fit for Unbound. At the end of the day, Unbound is my biggest goal of the year for right now. And unfortunately, that I really want to do Traca someday, and I will do Traca someday. But as of right now, just the amount of importance that I'm placing on Unbound kind of doesn't make it feasible.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, last one, and we get a little more serious here to close things out, but who in your life inspires you to do what you're doing every day?
Oof, that's a good question. I've said this a number of times on the Bonk Bros podcast, where I talk about what I find the most inspiring performances. It's not somebody like Tade, who's a genetic freak who just destroys everybody at the tour, or Vanderpool, who's also a genetic freak who just shows up to every cyclocross race and it looks like he's racing juniors, right? Like that. I like watching that, and you're like, wow, it's crazy how, this person is like the pinnacle of what a human being can be on a bike, and that's cool to see. But what gets me so riled up is when somebody who, when somebody thinks outside the box to win a bike race or get a result. And what I mean by that is this person is not necessarily the most talented, but they did something that the competition isn't doing, and that's what got them the result. And there's one example. There's numerous examples of this over the course of cycling history, but the one example that from recent history that I think comes to mind is when Mohoric won
MSR.
Yeah, Milan-San Remo. So you already know exactly what I'm talking. I mean, I've talked about this on talked about this on Bonk Bros. But for those who don't know, Mohoric is already an amazing downhiller. But he's definitely not the strongest rider on that day. I think Tade was in the race. I think Vanderpool was in the race, as well as a bunch of other riders that on any other given day should be beating Mohoric. But there's a downhill leading into the finish, and what he did was he modified his bike so that he put a dropper post on a road bike, and he put 180 rotors on his road bike. I mean, he basically set up his road bike for downhilling, right? Like he he said, how can I make this bike more optimized for downhilling, right? So for this one particular section of the course that suits my strength, I can get a gap. That's exactly what he did. He got a gap on that section, dropped his dropper post down, and if you look at the footage, it's like the scariest thing you'll ever see. Like, he almost crashed. He almost went into the gutter and crashed. Like, he's absolutely risking injury and, potentially worse by doing this. And he wins the race by doing that, by thinking outside the box. And for a road rider, road is such a traditional sport. It actually irks me sometimes how traditional road can be. I feel like there's so many things that have evolved so much slower than they otherwise could have, just because certain people in road racing are so stuck in the mud. For a road racer to put a dropper post on a road bike for a race is crazy. I mean, that is crazy outside the box thinking. And when I watched that, I became an instant Mohoric fan. And I don't want to say that like everything Mohoric does inspires me, or like that Mohoric is my number one idol or something, but that is so much more impressive to me and gets me so much more inspired to do something like that than seeing Tade just dominate people at the Tour.
Sure. Yeah.
Or seeing, I guess the Lifetime Grand Prix equivalent would be like seeing Keegan just ride away from everybody at Leadville. Not that Keegan doesn't think outside the box. I mean, like, he's got the fenders on his fork. He's got the drop bars. Keegan actually is an outside the box thinker, but that really gets me going, is when somebody who doesn't necessarily have the legs or have the fitness or have the talent, so to speak, does everything exactly correctly and even goes above and beyond and thinks outside the box of their competition to get that result.
Yeah, fantastic answer, and very on brand as well. So that's yeah. Dylan, this has been awesome, man, and I appreciate just your candor, and you are inspiring with what you're sharing, and to so many people in ways that maybe you haven't been or don't feel that you are, but truly you are, and I appreciate that, man. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Thanks for hanging out with Dylan and me today. If you enjoyed this interview and it resonated with you, or you think you might know someone who would enjoy this interview, do me a favor and share it with them, please. Community is built when we reach out to others and we recognize what's going on in their lives, and we make those personal connections. I do hope you are having an amazing day. I am so thankful that you are here, whether it's just this week or whether you are a regular listener or viewer of the show. Get outside and move today and do your body good, but most of all, remember that you are loved.